This is Mo.
And this is Aryeh.
And you're listening to
The Relatable Podcast.
Let's do it!
Later in the morning, and I'll be honest, I could be honest with you guys.
Yes.
The first thing I do is I do look at my phone. No. First, I thank God.
Nice.
The first thing I do before before I look at my phone, and believe it or not, religious people have that also. This thing is destroying us. It's taking over. I don't know what to do with you, but I love you so much, but I hate you. I love you. Okay.
It's a love-hate relationship.
It really is. But one thing I do is when I wake up in the morning, I'm a religious Jew, as you can see, I say a prayer called Moda'ani. I am thankful to you. I admit to you, Hashem. Before I look at my phone, I always say that.
With the war, what impact does it have? Do you feel it? Has things changed since October 7th?
Yes, we feel
You've been here for a long time. What
I have kids
stages?
in the Army also.
Really?
Wow.
Yes. I have some kids that are not going to the Army, and I have a kid right now in Army in combat engineering.
Well, I didn't know that.
And I have two other kids, one's in special forces.
Wow.
He's not allowed to tell me what he does.
Wow.
And when I
That's
asked
rough.
him, I'm sorry, can I just tell you a great
Yeah,
story right
please.
now? Okay. My son, in October, he was supposed to finish his law degree. But we all know what happened in October. He wasn't able to finish it. He still hasn't been able to finish it. He once called me from Gaza. Why did he call me? He got a phone. They said we weren't allowed to have phones over there because phones are, as we know, very dangerous and people know where you
Trackable,
are. And you could
don't.
be tracked, and it's real stuff over there. But he got a phone from the Army, and he had a half hour. And he only knew 2 phone numbers by heart. And one of them was mine.
Nice.
And you want to hear, this is just a crazy story. To let you know what's going on in the Israeli Army. He called me and I said, I started asking him, how's it going and stuff like that. And I said, is that bombs I'm hearing bombing? And do I hear gunfire? He says, yeah, but I have to talk to you about something else. I don't want to talk about the war right now. He asked me, do animals have intrinsic rights to be happy?
It's a very interesting question.
This is a soldier he's
Live gunfire.
with live gunfire on the front lines, and that was an issue, a philosophical issue.
A debate that was going on in the Army itself?
Yes,
Interesting.
in his units, and he was I'm not going to say what unit he is, but it was an important unit, as a frontline unit, and that's what they were discussing.
The animals have intrinsic value and rights.
And
Yes.
what's the point you're trying to bring out?
It was just amazing. No, but I'm just letting you know how people approach the fight. He's in the war himself, but it was bothering him. There was a time when the zoo was all set free, and there was animals everywhere, and we didn't know what to do with them, and they were getting in way of our work. And a lot of they used the animals in part of their war effort to impede us of doing what we have to do.
Yeah.
And he wanted to know, what do they do? On one hand, you have a mission. It actually happened with a different son of mine. I don't know why I'm getting the subject matter. He called me after he had his first raids on some bomb-making factories, which are usually in houses. And he says, Abba, am I allowed to hit a woman? I said, well, what's the story? He says, we came in, we threw the stun grenades into the house, and, we immediately wrapped the handcuffs, the plastic things, around the men. And all of a sudden, a lady came after him with a frying pan.
Oh my gosh.
And what are you going to do with that?
That sounds the most Arab I've ever heard. Let's go.
Yeah, with a whole bunch of words. Wow. And he's asking me, what are you asking me for? I said, well, what does the Army say? They said, if they're in their way, you got to intervene. He says, I just want to know from the Jewish God-fearing point of view, what should I do? And I says, if you have a job over there, they're intervening, and you're trying to protect our nation over there, then you got to do what's got to be done. Wow. But you see that, what we're having in issues, I'm having problems of getting certain things. I don't like getting woken up at 6:30 in the morning because these Houthis, whoever they are, I don't even know who they are, why they hate me.
Last week we had, 2 bombings?
It's crazy.
Ridiculous.
And, so I'm having my personal issues on it. But you see that even soldiers are having other issues that are going on. We're being affected. We're a nation at war. And since today, one of the big words is trauma. There's many types of trauma. I think they're going to have to start redefining this type of trauma, that type of trauma.
Well, different
levels.
levels.
There is so many different. It's like a very big umbrella.
Right.
Like in my day, ADD was a big umbrella.
Gotcha.
Anything wrong with you, this is going back
That's
like
it.
30 years ago.
you have ADD. You're done. You're cooked.
Exactly.
Wow.
But now we have so many different things. There's
Yeah.
like a whole bunch of new letters that they keep on bringing in every day.
Do you
It's
think
wild.
that's for the negative or for the positive?
I think they're trying to understand it more and more. And it is. It's complicated. Each human is very complicated. And as we're talking about how does the war affect us, it's affecting us, but in different ways. Like my son still didn't get his law degree. He has 1 semester left. He just hasn't been able to.
That's
Why?
very difficult.
Well, he's traumatized. He's really
For
traumatized.
sure. Yeah. Wow.
I mean, he would go, they give him off every other weekend, so he'd be going 2 weeks without a shower.
That's crazy.
What?
Laundry, everything. Yeah.
Nothing. You're in Gaza. These people on the front lines where are they sleeping? They're sleeping in
the
their
car, I
houses
don't
that
know.
they,
No way.
yes,
Yeah. I'm bombed out.
bombed
That's
out
wild.
shelters, just laying down, sleeping. And these are guys like us over here.
Younger
They-
than me, even.
Yeah,
Yeah.
18-year-old
Kids.
guys putting their lives on the line for us.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I'm saying you also have the point where is it really a choice? Like, you're pretty much forced into it, but the question is, what's the real intention?
Meaning?
Meaning, are they doing it ultimately for the good, or do you think they're doing it just because they're forced into it? Like, what's the between most of these soldiers that are going in? What's the
It's every war.
What's the character trait?
Every war is it's part of being patriotic. You have to believe in what you're doing. If you don't believe what you're doing, you can't do that.
So you think
They
that's a
really
fundamental?
believe, and
You think that's a
believes
fundamental
that
part?
He's here to take care.
They're very
really make
passionate.
it.
Very passionate.
Yeah,
about the land,
that's what I've
about-
noticed. That the soldiers, for sure, are very passionate about the state of Israel.
But that's something
Yes,
cultural.
definitely.
That's since the founding of the state. That pride of being a Zionist, if you will.
Listen, I'm proud to be American. My father was a serviceman in America, and we always put our flags on July
4th of July,
and,
yeah.
and it hurts me. And I like the way when we mentioned Trump, I like the way that he's building up the people
Yeah.
that are giving of themselves to make our country safe, and they really are people who fought. You could argue on a lot of things, but I think everybody that's living in America is happy that America is there. We have issues, of course, but there is patriotic things. People who put out themselves to help you. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, definitely within the Israeli culture, it's extremely divided. We all know that, right? The people who are learning, the people who are on the front lines. And obviously, if I were to take the route of asking why isn't one side more appreciated, that's kind of just giving more fuel to the fire. I'm wondering what practically could there be that if I ideologically disagree with somebody, for whatever the reasons may be, religiously, personal reasons, can I still see the beauty of what you're doing? That doesn't mean I want to do it, or that doesn't mean that I agree with it, but I still see the beauty of what you're doing, and I don't have to agree with it fully.
Does everybody hear that question? That is an incredible question
Thank
that
you.
everybody needs to think about, because otherwise we're going to have enemies everywhere.
Right,
Your
within
spouse is going to be
ourselves.
your kids, everyone is going to be
What
an
do you mean
enemy.
by that? What do you
Because
mean?
we all have issues. We all have disagreements.
Of course.
Now, you could still have peace with disagreements. It depends on how you do it. And one of the most important things is common ground. Now, we all know that when we're under attack, we become friends.
Right, all of a sudden.
We have to,
right.
because there's something bigger out there that's endangering us. And I guess I would go on every level. We know today we're in a world where marriages aren't working out. And
Why
I'll
is
be
that?
honest, and I'm on my second marriage right now, and I'm very, very happy.
Mazel tov,
Yeah,
Rabbi, by the way.
huge
Yeah.
congratulations.
Yeah, I was married for 30 years, and we're good friends. Not good friends, we're friendly. How about
Sure.
that? I'm not going to say
Which
we're
is, by the
friends.
way, a huge step.
Yeah.
That's ginormous.
Very uncommon.
Yeah, so we have to work things out with people. Nations have to on a nation thing, and you're right. Even in a country like Israel, where there's a lot of ideologicals, and everybody knows if you have 2 Jews, 3 opinions, 4 Jews, 5 shuls.
Exactly, for sure.
This is part of our nature,
Right.
but yet we survive together.
Yeah.
And we live together, and it comes to this point is we really have to understand how we're getting along and what we have in common.
What does Rebbe advise to RAI, people that are listening, to find the common ground on the other side? It always seems like there's a dividing part, and obviously everybody inherently wants to be right. Everybody wants to prove the other person wrong, or whatever it is. How do we kind of level out? And even if someone's so wrong,
You guys are awesome.
Thanks,
Guys,
Rabbi.
this is awesome questions being over here. I was not prepped on it.
We'll
Okay.
clip that part.
What?
The approval. This is awesome. So,
Yeah, just to
subscribe.
These are really good.
Just to
I'm
go back.
enjoying this right now.
Thank you.
I have
Us
what
as
to
well.
say on this question
Thanks, I
also.
appreciate that, Rabbi.
Now, I'm going to bring a very famous verse in the Torah, in the Bible, that you have to love your friend like
you love
yourself. Okay? And the emphasis, of course, we know, love your friend. How do you love your friend? Like yourself.
Wow.
You have to like yourself.
What
You
does
have
that
to
mean?
have-
If I say I like myself, yeah, I eat ice cream,
Wow.
I go surfing. What do you mean by loving yourself?
do we take care of ourselves?
Nice.
I mean, we have issues. Now, I could go around and give the voice in my head very negative things, or I could say I'm doing okay. Even though I'm not perfect. I'm far from perfect. Right? I'm gaining a little weight over here.
Arya could show you how to do some exercises.
Rabbi reps out the pull-ups out there, by the way.
Rabbi's a beast. Remember
Yeah.
on that trip we were doing pull-ups on the
Ship.
the ship? That was insane.
I do believe that the good Lord gave us these bodies. This is a tool. We have to take care of it.
The
And
lavush.
I'm in my 60s and I'm still exercising. I exercised this morning
Really?
for 10 minutes before
Nice.
in the morning.
What does Rabbi feel about yoga? Has Rabbi tried yoga at all?
That's what I do.
Nice.
I've
Can we
been-
get a sesh?
What?
Can we get a yoga session?
Sure, anytime.
Can we go to the
Nice.
house maybe?
Sure.
Well, we'll book it. We'll
Front
book
porch.
it.
How
The
you
main
doing?
thing is there's so many ways of taking care of your body. You have to find it. Right now, at this part of my things, I like deep stretches. I like balance. I like joint stretches, but I'm taking care of myself because I like myself. You want to hear a funny thing? This has nothing to do with anything, but I like this idea. One day, here's something for everybody to work on. Pass by the mirror, look in the mirror, and say, I like that guy. Try it. It's powerful. I like that guy because if you like that guy, you're going to take care of him. And there's many areas in our life that we're being delinquent on that we need to take care of ourselves. And I think for sure, taking care, you don't have to be working 3 hours in a gym, but there's so many enjoyable. My wife this morning was doing chair yoga.
I love that.
Okay, it was cute. So I'd like to do a little bit more heavier stuff, but she was doing it, and
Beauty.
she had a smile on her face, and she felt good afterwards.
Nice.
We got to take care of the goods in our lives. If we're taking care of ourselves and liking ourselves, and we're going to be more likely to develop that stage of liking
Towards
other people,
others as well.
even though they're not perfect.
Right. Because I'm not either perfect, and I'm trying to like myself as well.
Yeah. I don't know if it was you, Ari, that showed me this quote, or I discovered it. I don't know, whatever it was.
I'll take credit.
But yeah, we'll give Ari the credit, the benefit of the doubt. But basically, it was saying, he was like, name everything you love, and he the punchline was like, how long did it take for you to name yourself? I was like, whoa! I showed you this, right? What was it?
Wow.
Ari showed it to me. It's like, whoa, that's crazy.
I'm a teacher guy. I'm going to use this. I'm going to use that.
You like that now?
I'll get you.
I think
I'll
I'm
get you
gonna
word
use it
for word.
at the Shabbat table.
Nice.
That would be a cool thing
Powerful.
going on. Having everybody
So
going.
powerful.
That's beautiful.
By the way, I was just in Efrat this past week, and Roshel Katz, who's a rabbi there, spoke brilliantly. And his idea was that
I like him. I love him.
we're so to be able to have innocence and purity that we should be able to get up and every person should say their accomplishments that they had this past week. I was successful in business. I was able to work
Yeah,
out.
look
I
at
had
the
good
positives.
relationships. And everybody's going to look at this man sincerely and earnestly be able to clap and cheer him on and say, continue, more blessings in you. And then I should be able to get up and say, wow, look what I accomplished. And everybody says, good job, Rick, keep on going. To be there for each other, to be able to give and to be able to
Positive
build.
Thinking.
It's huge.
It does.
It's huge.
And there's what to get down on. There really is.
Yeah.
The world is difficult. In my life, I have difficulties. But when you're emphasizing, but I also have this, I'm going to teach you guys something really
Please.
cool. I learned this from one of the greatest self-help books I've read. It's called Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love this
I like the
thing.
name. Off the bat.
Sounds
Okay.
like
I have to
Yiddish
read it.
mama.
Yeah, it sounds like a
it's
nice
actually
high
written
Mishaba.
by some Christian healers also.
Really?
They're famous TV, but these books are sold millions.
Beautiful.
And in it was a teacher that, and I'm going to just say it in my own words, the way I do it. If I was to ask you to write 5 things you need to improve,
Yeah.
how long will it take you?
2 seconds.
2 seconds. 10 things? Okay, 3
10
seconds.
seconds, maybe, yeah.
I know what I need to work on. I need to work on my eyes. I need to work on my attitudes. I need to work on being more compliant with doctors, even though I get a little nervous with them, right? If I was to ask you now to write 3 things you're doing good in life with.
It would be much more difficult.
By the way, I already feel the tension in
Yeah.
me. It doesn't allow me to recognize that, yo, I'm low-key, I'm good, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's really a life changer. Because I believe God created us with a lot of good. We have diamonds inside of us. And a lot of times we don't take them, look at them, and polish them. But we're all something unique about every one. I've done this exercise myself. I'll give you just an example. I'll give an example of someone else. I know someone else who did this, and they had a mental illness called bulimia anorexia. I think it's actually called a disease today. And they worked very hard on it, and they're very proud of themselves. And guess what? They are therapists in this area. They're able to give to others because they realized they were able to accomplish something.
Wow, you're saying the very own struggle and challenge that they had was used to better others.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Because it wasn't just that they struggled. They recognized that they accomplished with it. They got over it, and they have something. And when they wrote about themselves, what are they doing good? And they're like, they really did good in recovery.
Nice.
I think the 12 steps has something like that. When you reach a certain level in your recovery, you help others
Give
out.
to others, yeah.
Because you're understanding that you have something that you did. It's beautiful.
And
It's
that
amazing.
helps yourself in the same time. I think sharing over the things you've learned and the accomplishments you've had improves your own skills the same way.
Mm-hmm.
That's
great.
beautiful. I like what the rabbi just said, that we all have diamonds inside of us. How long have you been teaching again? You texted me before. How long has your career been going on for?
Well, when I was in college, I was a good student in university. I had the Equal Opportunity Program, and I helped. That was my job.
And then since then,
I was a
it's been
state tutor.
how long?
My first teaching job, oh gosh, ages. What I'm doing now of teaching teenagers after high school is going on for over 30 years.
That's unreal.
Whoa.
I really want to focus on that because it's very rare that I'm privileged to sit down with somebody with that much experience. In those 30 years, plus even, what have you seen that contributes the most to people? I don't like using the word success because it makes it sound that somebody was a nobody and now I built him up and changed him, although everything's inside of us, obviously. But what are the biggest tools that somebody could access those diamonds that you mentioned earlier?
From the teacher point of view, what I've seen from the students.
As an educator,
working.
as a leader, as a mentor, what advice would you give to others?
Well, education means you have to give over material because there's incredible knowledge out there. Wherever you go, you need to know what you're doing in order to do it. So an educator has to reach the person. Things have radically changed because of the phone. And,
Meaning what?
The phone
Technology, you mean?
Yes, the technology really, it makes it easy for people to access knowledge without working for it.
Nice.
And it becomes...
Oh, wait. Whoa. Wait, what do you mean by that? You're saying as a negative?
Yes. Podcasts. How about that?
Nice. Yeah,
Okay,
what do you mean?
and I listen to podcasts also because I'm hearing new point of view. But really my idea is studying the material, reviewing it, making sure you understand it, and making a acquisition on it. I don't know how much people are getting from...
I want to push back on that a drop because I actually...
I'm getting dangerous over
I
here.
have a certain sense of agreement with Rabbi. I could hear exactly both sides. That at the same time, look, it's so amazing that we have all this information accessible by the click of a button. But at the same time, you probably would retain more knowledge if you were to read a book, if you were to open up 4 different books and study it, and you're hearing all different sides and different, I guess researches. I don't know how to, word it out, but come together instead of just ChatGPT. Hey, how many bombs have been sent to Gaza in the last 20 minutes, right? Before you have to do a bunch of research, you have to ask somebody this and that. You have to put together things. Now it's like
I'm very not. I understand what you're saying. I
Can I
brought it out.
give
Yeah.
an
the
explain
knowledge,
myself?
you don't have to work for it.
Wait, I think yeah.
Just, I turned 60 this year, which was a big moment for me, and I got on my
Could we make a
phone.
cheers to that, Rabbi?
What?
Could we get cheers to that?
Cheers.
I think the rabbi
I
already
feel
finishes.
good. I'm happy.
We'll have to get tequila off camera.
Time to happiness.
I went on podcasts on health over 60, and there was a lot of great ideas, and I'm trying to follow them. But you know what? How do I word this? Some points made a point to me, and there are other points. If I didn't sit down and write notes on it or discuss it in my mind, I did not make an acquisition on it. And a lot of times, when you're in a classroom setting with the books and you're learning, I don't know how many people are listening to podcasts sitting like, this is a learning experience to me. You have to put work into learning. Like,
I know that I fully agree with.
Yeah, if that's your only point, I don't think that.
Well, there's other
I don't
points,
think that's
right.
right.
But I was gonna flip it. I totally agree that if I do it's literally a pyramid of the best ways to retain knowledge, right? So there's obviously listening, which I believe you grasp 10% of the material, and then there's writing it, there's reviewing it, there's discussion, and then the ultimate is teaching it. When I'm able to give it over, obviously I have the deepest level of understanding. That has always been in existence.
Yeah.
Because I could also have a book. You guys were giving examples of books. I have no problem with that. I could also read a book. I've done it many times, and then 2 weeks later ask me about what the basic idea was. I have no idea because I didn't actually do any of those tools to retain it. So I think that's regardless of technology or not. That's just in knowing what methods are best for us to retain that knowledge.
That's a very strong point.
But at the same time, what I was trying to bring out, so I totally agree with that. What I was trying to bring out is that the role of an educator, I would dare say, I mean, obviously, if you disagree, tell me, has shifted dramatically. Whereas beforehand, without the educator giving information, it was game over. Where else are you going to learn it from? Nowadays, forget about homeschooling. I literally could, with this iPad, with that MacBook, with my phone, I could study and I could do methods and write it down and take notes on my phone also. Forget paper, forget pen, right? And I'll be extremely knowledgeable, very knowledgeable, especially if I review it. I have discussions with my friends and my acquaintances. So then the question becomes, and I guess that's what I'm asking, is that once we understand that education has definitely shifted into more personal, which a person has the ability to, what then becomes the role of the educator? If information is more accessible now, what becomes the role?
What a great question.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to start with, are we more knowledgeable today than we were 20 years ago?
It's a great question.
I think it's answered through
Is that
studies over here.
really?
I think most countries, I know schooling has gone down. The knowledge that a person needs to know to get certain degrees have gone down all across the board. It could be on one hand that if I had a chavrusa.
But also, Rabbi, that's because skills have changed. You're looking at the
Right.
colleges, you're looking at the schools, this and that.
Yes.
But
Have businesses gone up?
Right, exactly. Those skills that we needed 20 years ago, we don't need as much now. Now, the most important skill for me to learn is how to maximize my potential with AI. If I don't know how to use AI, then I'm cooked.
Right.
I'm at
You have the best grades in math.
I'm at a major disadvantage to everybody. All the top marketing companies, all the top hedge funds, this and that, they're all using AI to narrow in and hone in on their skills and everything they need.
Amazing. We're not going anti-technology.
Right.
We're trying to look where we, as in terms of educators.
Right, but if you're taking a study, I don't know how these studies are conducted, but if you're taking a study on what's the IQ level of someone that knows math, right? Nobody needs to know math anymore because you have a calculator, because you have AI, because you have Google. So obviously, on paper, it's gonna look like those statistics have drastically plummeted, but that's because
it's not as needed anymore.
It's not as needed, yeah.
Oh, I like what you're saying. I'm going to give an example of technology today, that blew me away. I had a chavruta for many years as a study partner.
Thank you for translating.
Thank you.
I loves that.
We were studying the Talmud, and he was an emergency room doctor. Okay, and he told me once that he's very knowledgeable, emergency room doctor, just whatever comes he's got to deal with. But all of a sudden, the pressures in the cranium started going up on this person. He never did brain surgery in his life. And he called up on his phone, unbelievable. How does one do brain surgery?
No.
As the guy, he had minutes to save this guy's life.
That's not normal.
And
That's crazy.
they showed him 3 places where to drill in the brain to let go the pressure that was building up in the brain, and he saved the person's life.
That's nuts.
This is incredible. You can't know everything, and the technology over here brought him something and saved the person's life. So on one hand, on these areas that we have such access to knowledge, but we're not very knowledgeable a lot of times. And I guess what you were saying before, the world needs people who know AI. In my days, there was a concept called general studies. We had to learn philosophy. Most people say, why do you need to learn philosophy? Philosophy is looking at issues with discussion and trying to stretch it and, stand up debate teams we had when I was growing up.
Yeah.
These were to stand on your things. Do you really, and you're learning with a person that might know more than you, and he might just, put you in your place.
Yeah. So you're saying that if anything, the role of an educator is to double down and impart more knowledge? Is that?
See, I'm teaching in a yeshiva. I'm not teaching in a university. And a university has to teach people trades. In a yeshiva, we're trying to teach people through, especially the Talmudic way. I believe a lot in discussions with people.
Nice.
But the people have to know the material.
Sure.
And today, people are having a hard time with
I
material.
agree with that for sure.
And
At the same time, you have to do your hishtadlus, I guess, meaning, take
Effort.
notes, backtrack the parts that you think are good. Like, you have to do your effort, to enhance the retention of the knowledge that you're gaining. If you're just listening to it while you're working out and you're doing 10 other things at the same time, then
we
you're
try to
obviously-
multitask everything today.
Exactly.
Because we have the things, and you have
Right.
to ask, how deep is it going in?
The same
Interesting.
thing with a book, though.
Quality knowledge.
Yeah, the same thing with a book. If you're reading and you're, talking to friends at the same time, you're gonna, you might be reading the words, but is
One
it
thing I
going
like
into
about books is you're forced to think. When I'm watching a movie and I'm sitting back over here, the movie's taking me to the next place.
Right.
Also, the book is, but I have a little bit more.
Yeah, of you staying interesting, very interesting. So I kind of want to tie together the different discussions that we've been having until now. We touched on technology. We touched on the aspects of the role of educator. So I wanted to have a discussion about. We know that especially in religious Judaism, there's a huge stress on traditions. So much so that one of the first Mishnahs in Avos, you could correct me, is all about the tradition that we have going from Moses all the way down to the present day. And the question that arises is that we know the reality that the world changes constantly. The world's constantly adapting, so much so that every innovative change that we've had was met with fierce opposition. You could go to the Beis Yaakov movement, we could go to the Musar movement. Even the yeshiva movement was met with serious pushback. So the question comes out is, how do we balance between maintaining Jewish traditions and the values that we hold so strongly, and at the same time being able to adapt and being able to really not conform, I don't want to say, rather be present to the moment that is?
Amazing question. Everybody needs to be thinking and talking about this. There's a few questions in there. So I'm going to hit two aspects of it. One of them is community versus the individual. Very important. We choose our communities. I tell young boys who are looking to get married and stuff, I said, by the way, a reflection on yourself of who you're going to marry, where you're going to live, and believe it or not, where you're going to send your kids to school.
Nice.
Assuming that, forget about public school and stuff like
Right.
that. That's a different issue over here. So we are very influenced by our community. We choose a community that we think that we're going to be most reflected. And we need a community. Community helps bring us through a lot of issues, and so especially in the Jewish community, because we believe in going to shul and we believe in a lot of the
Communal
holidays,
aspects.
the community aspects, but yet we don't want to give up our individuality. And as we know, Jews are very individual.
Yeah.
We have that. So that itself is very important. Which community are you choosing? And there's a lot of communities. So now when we're coming into the communities, which we could go into the communities in the Orthodox world, the Jewish communities, and the Jewish nation has, for thousands of years, has gone through so many insurgencies, revolutions, civil wars, all these things, break-off movements, that we've been through it all, and we've had it. So there's a beautiful piece by the Rambam. That's Maimonides. Maimonides is one of the greatest Jewish thinkers. And he says that when the Torah... Now, again, I'm a religious man. I don't know what everybody is doing out there. So I'm going to come from the religious point of view. God created the world. The world is just the most magnificent place. And yes, there are rules and regulations, and there's absolutes in the world. I believe in this, and God's will is what I, as an Orthodox Jew, is trying to understand. And it's very hard. And it's not black and white. I mean, there's so many things that can bring you in other directions. That's part of the greatness of man. We have free will. We have to make right decisions on it. But I'm coming from a point of view that God gave the Torah, the Bible, and is the Word of God, and it's the best way to live this world. How to adapt it and how to understand it. There's been many traditions coming down, and you can't say that they're all wrong, because they're not all wrong. They say at the end of days, truth will be scattered. What does it mean truth is going to be scattered? There's going to be a lot of groups that have this aspect of the truth, and they're going to say, look, we're right and you're wrong. But the other group has another aspect. God is so big, and the diamond, there's so many facets to religion. So this is what the Maimonides brought down, an incredible idea, that when the Torah was first given, we knew what it meant and everything. But as the generations go on, there are new ideas, new issues coming up, new tests, and we believe that. The word for a year in Hebrew is shana, which comes from shinoi, which is changing. Every year has its new changes in it to adapt to. When we can't compare ourselves to past generations because we have different challenges. Different reality and challenges. Now we have to take this Bible that we believe God gave to us and now how to apply it to our reality. So automatically you're going to have a huge divergence of it. Divergence, is that the right word?
I think so. Makes sense.
So what's that balance between adapting and saying this is what we need in our present reality versus, yo, you just crossed all lines possible?
Yeah, I was going to bet that.
So this is what Maimonides writes. We're very stubborn people. We don't take things easily. The fact that the Jews have been doing the mitzvahs of the Torah for all these years, the commandments, is really incredible because we're stubborn. Not that I want to. I don't have an issue with pork and stuff like that. I'd like to eat it. But what can I do? I believe that the mitzvah for me personally as a Jewish person is not to eat it. Okay, you might have your other opinions, but what we basically had was when the Torah was given, it was pretty agreed on. And the first generations like Joshua, after Moses, our teacher, wasn't in the world, they had their first new issues coming in where they had to adapt it. And there's a very rigorous way in the Torah, in what we call the oral Torah, on how to figure out how to apply to the new realities. Now, his generation came together, agreed on it. This is what we hold is now what we call Judaism. The next generation cannot just say, once it's accepted by a new generation, we don't just say, that's crazy, I don't want to do it. We understand what they did. And if we're in line with that...
Is, you were just mentioning, the generation, the leaders. Is the generation the one that dictates the outcome of the things that change and the things we're adapting to, or is it the leaders that is really dictating us? And
that's amazing. So we've had a lot of false prophets. If you read the Bible, it was a plague among the Jewish people. So one of the things is false prophecy is this person going against what was normally accepted in our religion? And if they were, we consider them a false prophet.
So where is the room
if
for
they're
innovation?
Saying well, we do because there's new issues going on. I'll tell you a cute story. This has to do with like real Orthodox Judaism. We keep Sabbath to a certain extent. We want to rest. God created the world and rested on the seventh day. We also want to be in peace with the seventh day. How is one in peace with the seventh day? We have a concept called there's 39 levels of work, and it's constantly with the technology going on. So we're not allowed to color and draw on Shabbat. So for example, there's a new type of glasses when the sun hits it, it can make it darker as sunglasses.
Yeah.
Is that called coloring or not?
Interesting.
This is an issue. And there's, of course, two different opinions on it.
Probably more, but yeah.
There's
right.
probably more. I don't know how you could have more, but yes, we'll have more than ones on it. So this would be an issue of now my religious observance. Am I following the Shabbat by knowingly putting on these things and there's going to be coloring me going out in the sun, or do I have to avoid the sun? These are like issues that are coming on. So even today, there actually is a disagreement on it. And there are many different sects. Now, I'm not going to tell this one he's wrong. The way I look at it is I'm following this rabbi of this generation. This is the rabbi, the group that I'm following along. Now, I'm sorry if I upset some people over here, but when we're dealing, this is in the Orthodox world, when we're dealing with Orthodox, conservative, and reform, please, I'm not pointing fingers at anyone, but I don't know if I would call conservative, I'd call it the conservative movement, and not so much conservative Judaism.
Why is
because
that?
my idea of Judaism is a tradition. Judaism is a tradition that has been passed by, that has been accepted, as there are certain accepted truths over here, and that when someone is starting a group that's going against the way that Judaism was until that time, then you have an issue. Eating kosher, milk and meat, and pork is something that for the last 3,000 years is what we call Judaism. You have many different, and there's lots of understandings in it, but the basic idea of it, if someone's going to start saying now, no, that was an old thing, we didn't do it over there, okay, that's your saying, but that's not what I would call Judaism. You want to say conservatism? Fine. And I have a lot, and by the way, I grew up conservative, and I appreciated a lot when I got from the people. I just feel that now that I became a believer in God, and God gave us the Bible in order to teach us how to do it, I'm not going to just eliminate parts of the Bible. Now, please, people who are conservative, I'll sit and talk one-on-one with you, and I appreciate everybody, and I'm coming from an Orthodox point of view, and I'm the reason why I'm saying is because I'm very happy with my belief.
But I'm just thinking, I love what you just said. The discussion that we're having is, I believe, what started first? Reform movement started first, I believe, right? Or was it conservatism?
Well, why did the conservative movement means to conserve. There was a problem. They felt that the reform movement was going way too far.
How did the reform movement start?
The reform movement started, I don't think from the most religious points of view. They wanted to be more like their neighbors.
They wanted to adapt. That's the question that we're asking.
And there was actual changes to what was accepted Judaism. I feel that when I put on my, what do they call it in Hebrew? My
kippah?
My tefillin.
Phylacteries.
Phylacteries. I'm doing the same phylacteries that was done by my great-great-grandparents and generations back. It's still the black. It's still the boxes on it. My Shabbat keeping, the basic idea of it, that I'm trying to not do certain, what I consider works that take away from being in tune with the world, of the creation of the world. I really believe that. I'm not too far off from what others have done. My laws of kashrut are like that also.
Yeah, I agree. I like that. Why is there such a stress on tradition?
Because that's what keeps us.
Meaning what?
When we know that tradition is the 613 commandments of the Torah, the mitzvahs that we do, that is your tradition. How to do it is, for thousands of years, we've been doing it in a certain way. Are there adaptations? There are adaptations, but it's not taken away from the original way that it was done. It was adaptations to the time. And again, what the Maimonides says, if all of a sudden you're saying something like, well, that's not how we did it before, and that has been rejected over and over again. Now, the original movements of like the Hasidim, when they came in with an approach, wasn't really, they're still doing the Shabbat and stuff like that. They're still doing the mitzvahs of the Torah.
You're saying it's not going against the letter of the law, so then there's room. Judaism has so much expansiveness.
We challenged it
hugely,
with a lot of force. But you know what? It's been accepted. They proved it. That no, we're not.
You're saying they fought for it. They fought for it.
And I go into a Hasidic place, I'm just as accepting, and it's different attitudes on it. And we don't have an issue
different
with
stresses,
different
focuses,
stresses, right. But it's not a change where I could say, wait, that's not tefillin.
Right.
You guys aren't keeping Shabbat.
Yeah, you're putting
I
an
didn't
ostrich
eat
on your head.
herring when I grew up. That's not to do with Shabbat. Yeah. But you're right. It doesn't have to do with Shabbat. The Shabbat is you're supposed to enjoy the Shabbat. Right. From where they came from in Europe, that kind of eating was stressed.
Nice.
Okay, there's more stress on dancing, which I happen to like.
Right. Just to ask a question on kind of the adapting point. It seems like these days, like I know personally for myself, I would probably agree with me, that a lot of guys these days feel much more connected to Hasidus and to that approach of, the more loving and doing mitzvahs and Torah with like ahava and real love and passion and making it fun and enjoyable. Like, dude, have a shot and have some herring over Shabbos. Like, uplift the whole experience. Why do you think that's changed over the last bunch of years? Especially especially Rabbi,
awesome.
Especially being
I gotta think about this.
Especially being in yeshiva, like every other yeshiva, like I'm so grateful for being in Fishers. I could do whatever the flip I want, but meaning like I could learn whatever I want. I was speaking to a friend over Shabbos, and he's in. I'm not gonna name the yeshiva. He's in a yeshiva where he's learning the same Gemara Kedushin or whatever, Gemara Gittin, 3 Sadarim a day. I'm like, you didn't learn anything Hasidus? You don't learn anything else? He's like, no, but my Rabbi gives a Musar shir for 5 minutes a day. He's like, during El Zaman, we get 10 minutes of Musar. During Winter Zaman, we get 5 minutes of Musar.
And
to me, I was like, what?
For many generations, it did work. But you know what? This generation is different. And going back to what we said before on education. When I remember in 5th grade, I had a certain teacher that if you disturbed in class, you had to walk up and put your hand, and he'd smack you with a ruler. I am still in the age in the 70s of a paddle. And you know what happens when I got that ruler? I paid attention. Today, what happens if someone gets a ruler? They're going to fall apart.
Straight
They're
to jail.
They can't. That's not chinuch, the whole attitude of the generation. Am I saying that it was good? No, I wish I didn't get beaten in those days, but it was a different attitude.
But by the way, it's very vulnerable to say, because a lot of people become opinionated that that's the way to do it. Discipline, physical discipline. I like how you're able to say maybe it wasn't the best.
I'll even say
thing,
on my own children.
Right.
Okay. I think maybe it was because I was younger that I definitely believe that you could give a kid a patch, not a wallop. In the thing, no hurting, definitely not a smack, not dehumanizing them or something like that. You cannot do it today.
Yeah, my question is that I'm trying to stress is I know these days a lot of people have really been connecting to Chassidus, Tanya and Reb Nachman, all of these things. We're really connecting to this much more than me personally, like Gemara and stuff like that. Like I'm learning right now. Kedushin is it that Yeshiva is learning, and I would much rather open up Likutei Moharan than Gemara, right? Is that because I really want to connect more? Is that because this generation is becoming much more weak, much more sensitive? Maybe
I like the word sensitive more than weak.
Yeah.
No offense.
It could be that they're both right.
Yeah. Oh, okay. It could be they're both. Again, we're trying to positively understand because I believe that we're doing okay. People say, "Oh, the world's a disaster in the old generation," stuff like that. It's not true. The world is functioning. Okay, we are functioning. We're getting through things, and yes, technology has brought a lot of new ideas into the world, and the ideas coming from everywhere. And yes, what worked in past generations doesn't mean it's going to work in this generation. And yet, like what you're saying, you're seeing that the youth is very attracted to the love of Hasidus. And instead of putting their mind and stretching in Talmudic discussion, they're they're still trying to use this. Judaism and the study of the Torah is supposed to be an exercise in the mind. They're doing different emphasis. Again, it's not going away from the tradition. It's again in the emphasis. We believe in questioning. Like everybody knows, what's one of the most important things in Judaism? The 4 questions that the kid asks on that night. We want questions, and questions encourages the thinking. And yes, we have to question. This didn't work for me. Something else is working for me, and you see it is working for it. Again, with what we mentioned before, the word year in Hebrew is shana, from shinoi. Things are changing. The world is changing, and we are rapidly changing in these generations, as we see.
I like a lot. We were discussing earlier with Yehuda Mattel, and a big focus that he was placing was on the ability to ask why. What am I doing? Why? Just being able to pause for a second, like we were saying before.
And that is our 4 questions. Why is this night different from all of the nights?
And
that's really part of our tradition. Is we question why.
The most. And if an educator doesn't know, the ability to say, I don't know either. And that in itself is a huge, profound answer. But it really does come down to that ability to question. And I fear that the pushback that's given a lot of times, the way that Mo was asking it, I know for myself that when that question's addressed, I start tensing up. You're weak, and what's with all this Hasidus, this and that? Come on, do what you're supposed to do. Gemara, Chumash, Muster, we've been doing this for generations. All of a sudden, you're coming and decide to change it. And that question gets me very nervous and upset because then we're not allowing.
We also didn't have cars for generations.
Yeah, for sure.
Does that mean you should walk? When I was little, we walked to school, something like that. No, this is the reality that we have over here, and we have to ask. I know when I taught, Talmudic studies 25 years ago, it was a classroom setting with a blackboard and with, weekly, I'd call it worksheets. I don't think you could use the 4-letter word test today. No, you do worksheets. Okay, but today my Talmudic shiur is much different. We sit at a table. It's much more discussion.
Yeah, very.
And I'm constantly thinking of ways to bring it more to
beautiful.
life, because people are very worldly today.
Yeah.
Very worldly. Again, this is the technology.
Right.
And if you're going to just ignore that aspect, you can't say, well, this is how we did it 20 years ago. But, 20 years ago, they had the exposure to everything. You could see anything you want today. And if the Torah, which I believe is from God, and it has to adapt to it, it has to. And automatically it's adapting. And we're seeing that people are really attracted to the emotions of Hasidus that's bringing down. And they feel really good. And they want to go to shul all of a sudden. When they're in a shul that's not singing or anything, or it's, you have...
Very bland.
Very bland. For me, believe it or not, I'm working on my prayer. I'm okay with it. But for a youthful kid, he didn't like going to shul when he was growing up. And now all of a sudden, we're singing and we're okay, and a little extra schnapps over here and loosening
I have a personal
up.
question, Rabbi. Me personally, I'm very, very grateful for growing up where I did and the community I have. I've been going to a Kalbach Minyan for the last 10 years of my life, and I love going to shul. We have programs and we sing and we make geschmack, and it's unbelievable vibe. Literally, our shul is this room. We have LEDs and vibes and guitars hanging up. Great, amazing environment. And I'm very, very grateful for that.
I got to join that.
The side note, though, is that's so amazing. But now me coming into a regular base medrash and a regular shul, it's very, very difficult for me to have the same enthusiasm and the same awesome uplifted prayers and whatever I'm doing in shul as I would there, because I'm so used to this amazing environment and moving into a regular, nothing wrong with it, but a regular base medrash and a regular
more standardized
shul. Yeah, how am I supposed to adapt? It's really much more difficult for me.
And throughout your life, you'll have a lot of changes, movements and stuff like that. And it was like this, and now it's like this. And that's part of the greatness of humanity, humans, is we do adapt. Now, if you all of a sudden ended up in a place where you have to adapt, but all of a sudden you stopped going to shul for that reason, yes, you have to look for something that's going to speak to you.
Right.
We are a generation that we need to be spoken to.
I like how Rabbi's putting himself with us. I think it's very youthful energy.
I feel
I'm with you guys.
I just changed my shul also. I just moved. I've been,
Mm-hmm.
I pray with the yeshiva, and this yeshiva is very Karbachish in singing. I'm actually Sephardic. I'm Spanish Portuguese. Last of a dying breed over here. There's not too many of us left. So I went to a shul that also has Spanish Portuguese traditions to it, more of a thing over, and English speaking in Israel. Cool. And it was radically different, but it was great for me.
They hit you nice. I like that. And for you, that doesn't mean that I should come along for the ride. No. You find your place, I'm thrilled. And then
now I love the yeshiva davening over here. And did I miss not having a kick up and dance during a song, which we have in the yeshiva? I love that also. This was much more formal.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have the yeshiva minyan, and this is the one that I'm probably going to pray in next week. I was interested. At the end of the day, I went to an old Hasidic Rebbe just to be around him, and it was beautiful. What was it? As we're gathering into shul, he's a very old man. He's a holy man, and he was in another room, and he was just humming a song. And as people were coming in, we came in. The emotion was amazing, humming a song, and then we started singing a Hanukkah song. Where all of a sudden, in the middle of it, he says, "Oh, what time is it? I think we have to pray right now." We went right into praise. It was beautiful.
Touching the heart, the emotions.
It was. And I don't believe I'm going to daven with him, because I think I'm going to give the other one a little bit of a try right now. But it was, it's adapting, yes.
It ties back into what we were saying in the beginning of the podcast, which is finding your place and finding your community that you really could stick with.
Community versus the individual. We need a community, but we're very individual. You said there's a reason why before. I just... But it was really good. Yes, we have to. Today we know we have to feel it. People, there's so much alternatives.
Right. That's what I was going to bring out also. Especially nowadays. It used to be, if I was in Germany, I was not getting to the Baal Shem Tov. It just didn't work, right? Because we're in different locations demographically. But now, due to the advent of technology, everything's accessible. I could be in Miami Beach, Florida, and I'm accessible to Ramalech Biederman's classes that he gives.
Right.
So there's so much options, and I think that's a huge plus. Obviously, it comes with its negatives because there's so many illicit and negative influences, like you mentioned earlier. It could be TikTok, it could be pornography, it could be social media, which really has a negative effect on everybody. And at the same time, there's a huge plus. With the darkness comes the light of being able to Torah anytime, daily dose, meaningful minute. I mean, could go on and on. Podcasts, classes, shiurim from the world's greatest teachers.
It's hard to know who you're listening to also.
What do you mean?
I'm very careful on what I read.
Okay.
And what I see. Because we're very attracted. We go after things like you were mentioning before. You someone, and all of a sudden you like listening to him, and it's so foreign to you, but you liked what you're saying. It could really be, because he's dynamic, but it's not where your inner belief is.
Okay. No, I'm talking about with verified people. Anybody who's on these websites, usually there's a background check. We're talking about religious observant Jews. And I think it's cool. I don't know if it's so threatening, because we're discussing before. If somebody is contrary to what I believe, then that's very dangerous. That is what I was referring to about the negative influences. I'm trying to focus right now on the positive, which I think there's so many benefits to the fact that people who are out of my circle, who maybe I didn't have a connection to, now I have the ability, due to technology, to be able to access their classes and the talks that they give. Where beforehand, if I wasn't in their city, forget about it.
And it makes you very diverse.
Yeah, exactly.
Also.
Knowledgeable, worldly, open-minded is a big one also.
Which, again, the individual, but we also need the community.
Exactly.
The
So I like how you're bringing that to
really
perspective.
saves us. And one should, it could be that even the Hasidic movement has actually, even though you individually chose it, but it's much more of a community
Very community
idea. It's
focused.
the Rebbe, and there's certain ways of doing things, which is beautiful. You find it, you're a lucky man when you find your community, that you can express your individuality. And sometimes, you know what? We give up our individuality on it, which some people, I'm not giving up my individuality, I know who I am. But sometimes the positiveness of the community, like we're saying over here, where you have such things, you're seeing all of a sudden a tish from Melech. You're like, wow, I have to find a place where there's a tish over here. And, and you'll find a community, and you might be where your soul is leading you to.
Yeah. Just to wrap up very quickly, we spoke many topics, from education to politics to balancing the worldview to your individualistic person. Is there a personal message that Rabbi would like to lead off whatever topics we discuss?
Well, I just love these two guys I'm talking to over there.
Let's go.
How about we have to put you on our marriage resume?
No, the topics you're bringing up are the real topics that I feel soulful people really have to address. Even though we gave some ideas over here, again, it's a podcast and it's kind of on the spot. I didn't sit down and have the questions and thinking, and
which is extremely
and
impressive
work,
to
which was difficult, but it was a lot of fun and it was very enjoyable. My message is, guys, you see, we have to get in touch with who we are. Find the messages that you like. See the beauty in who you are. God created all of us with a lot of specialness of us, and there's access to it. Find out who you are, what you're good at. Enjoy life. Very important, the community, and of course, God. Love you all.
Absolutely unreal, Rabbi. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You guys are.
Rabbi.
Thank you.
That